Good morning and welcome to Whitney in the Wild. I am Whitney Mendoza, managing partner with Liger Partners, and this morning I'm joined by Brett Stroney.
Yes, good morning. Thank you for having
Insperity.
me.
Good morning. So I'm totally going to let you talk about Insperity,
Sure.
but I feel like we should do that at the end
Absolutely.
because we had like already too much amazing conversation going on
Yeah.
that I feel like the listeners are really going to be all about.
Mhm.
So let's first start with the story of Brett.
Sure.
So kind of like, so Brett and I already kind of know each other. We've met up before and had breakfast, and so I think the listeners would be really interested in the recap. The recap of your life. You know, it's so that's you go through so much and you're like, give us the recap. But like you're a recent Atlantean. You just moved here, and I'd love for you to kind of go into that. And then you're a former Green Beret, so I'd love for you to share a little bit about your story and why you're here in Atlanta.
I didn't know if I should start back from the very beginning.
Not when
why I
like
even
you were
joined
born. No.
Well, we don't have to go that far back, but grew up in Northern Ohio. So like so many other people living here in Atlanta, just another displaced Ohioan.
Is that a common thing?
Down. It really seems that way too. I think
Interesting, okay.
Ohio, just as a state, travels well.
Yeah.
Not only with the license plates, and we can talk about the ad valorem tax later, right? And I'm not trying to turn anybody in, but I do notice that you could probably go to any bar or restaurant back when that was a thing. I know we're coming out of like those COVID years, right?
Yes.
But you could probably throw an IO out anywhere, and you'll probably get 3 or 4 OHs. Right back at you, and probably a couple other people who don't want to say anything, or you throw an OH and you'll get the IOs back. Excuse me, I flipped that around, right?
Yeah.
It's been so long. And some other people, because this is SEC's country, so you got to watch out. Leading with that. You got to watch out leading with that.
Yes, It can also get very dangerous in here.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, so what brought you to Atlanta?
I had some family considerations as far as that goes. And I think being in the military, there's a ton of bases here in the Southeast. I was at Fort Hood once upon a time.
Okay.
I was at Eglin Air Force Base, actually, most recently. But even like through my training, like various other places, Bragg, Benning, of course. And I think you just have that nice experience here in the Southeast. I think when you look at that and you're not thinking of Atlanta, this is a great city, amazing potential as far as that goes. Not always the most user-friendly, but that was one of the things that drew me to the city itself. That and some family considerations as well.
We were joking around about there was like 17 streets named Peachtree
Yes.
Street. Not very helpful. So you've been here about 2 years, right?
About 2 years this month, yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
so really... Well,
kind of one year.
Because 1 year was COVID.
Yes.
So that kind of stinks. So like, did you just get here before COVID hit?
I was here in about this time of year, 2019. So I had like the majority of that year. And of course, about the first quarter, I want to say was March when things really started getting a little goofy.
Okay.
As far as, or I shouldn't say, it became more serious. I was actually going to go to one of the racetracks. I had a buddy like there. I got tickets. I was super excited. This was another, former military person I networked into.
Yeah.
Maybe that's another reason as well. We have a lot of the branches, represented in this city. It's a very military friendly town.
Yeah.
And he canceled. He's like, I'm so sorry. Like, there's no way we're going to be able to do that. And it was kind of a question as to when it's going to open again. And that was, I think, the little bit of a precursor of what we were getting into as far as the COVID experience goes, and I say that, knock on wood cautiously, because I think we haven't quite had the standoff to look back yet, and things are looking good, but we're still in the woods.
Yeah. For sure. I would 100% agree with that.
Oh yeah.
So you came here to Atlanta, and then that's when you started your work with Insperity.
That's when I started with Insperity, yes.
Okay. And tell us a little bit about that, because I do want to... I feel like our conversation today is really going to relate back to the leadership factor.
Sure.
And your passion for helping smaller businesses.
Yes.
And also veteran-owned businesses.
Yes. Yeah, it's kind of like the niche I was carving out for myself as far as that goes.
Yeah.
Once you have that V card, that veteran card, of course, excuse me, you have some great access and placement, and of course, you never want to abuse that, far from it. But if you can have that and resonate, if there's something I can do by, with, and through Insperity to help them out, that's wonderful. But I'm also a live person, a node that's out there networking, trying to connect with other people. So if I can learn more about your business, I could also want to help you out that way. And that's how I like to work personally. I think that's the a higher level of professionalism, understanding how you can help somebody out, I guess, immediately through your resources, but also what would resonate with your greater network as well.
Yeah. So one of the things that we were chatting about before we went live is I essentially made this comment that I feel, so like some of the topics you had listed for us to talk about was like business strategy, the benefits of outsourcing, developing culture, and utilizing talent. And I feel like the military itself does those things really well. Like they know how to utilize and tap into talent. Business strategy, but you have to have strategy in general. I feel like there are a lot of those pieces that you can take, from serving and then translate that over into business itself. Like a lot of veterans come out and they do start their own business.
Yes.
I'd love to get your take on that. Like what, from your time in service, which thank you, by the way.
Oh, thank you for your support.
Appreciate it. I know we talked before about my grandfather being in the Air Force, so we're very appreciative of our military. And I'd love to know, during your time, what you feel you learned to prepare you for the next chapter in your life.
When you were talking about strategy and everything too, there's a whole bunch of other geopolitical conversations we could talk about when that does not always manifest itself well. So I'm just, trying to qualify everything as much as possible. However, I think
it's okay. It's the same business.
I'm like, ooh, I think one of the great things that you learn from the military is like how to think through a problem set.
Okay.
And I think that's the fundamentals, where you have the principles of strategy, that operational level, that tactical level too, and then thinking through that. How to take a plan on paper. It doesn't have to be overcomplicated. Usually the simpler the better. And then allowing that to be executed in real time. And I think through my experience with the Army, I wasn't leading necessarily boats or crafts or, teams of technicians, but rather, in my case, soldiers in combat.
Yeah.
And so I think for me, learning that those soft skills, not special operation forces skills, but I did learn some of those, right? But I think what we're talking about here is those softer skills, i.e. non-quantitative, and learned a higher level of emotional intelligence, I guess, for lack of a better term, and how to motivate people. And it's not just doing that in a self-aggrandizing way, but I think also in the military, learning those principles of real teamwork. And just to kind of I think bring that home, I was a detachment commander, an ODA, Operational Detachment Alpha, or a Special Forces team. And it was almost like being the captain of a pirate ship, right? And I'm not gonna go into any specific examples like thereof, but here it's more of a peer-to-peer relationship, and yet it's still kind of on me to be responsible for everything the team does and doesn't do.
Yeah.
And while I share that responsibility, I ultimately have that authority, yes or no. And as simple as that decision is, yes, we're gonna do this, no, we're not, there's a lot of feedback that I have to get through my other teammates too. And I think to have that foundation of trust and professionalism allows us to speak freely. I think we were talking about how military members operate and certain, words that they use, right? And it's not necessarily, certainly direct, not necessarily confrontational. It can almost come out that way, but needs to be quick and, try to get through all the fluff to get to what is necessary to make the decisions that we can all execute and move and row in the same direction. And that was an awesome thing. And probably one of my first professional experiences. Here it was, 12 people rowing the same direction.
Right.
And it was incredible.
Right.
And I think any small business owner, even large businesses, are trying to achieve something like that. And that's such a fragile and nuanced and contextual thing as well, that it's almost hang on loosely, but don't let go, right?
Yeah.
To try to find that magic. It's not lightning in a bottle, and you can set yourself up for that success, but it's also on the individuals to buy into it as well. And that is the necessity of culture. And I think that's what businesses want. You can say you're the best, and that's fine, and there's probably like great reasons to say that. Maybe they can argue that, but are you taking care of your people to build that trust to where they want to work with you? Or even at Insperity, what we say is that discretionary effort as well.
Yeah. Well, I love that, the picture of rowing in the same direction.
Yes, yeah.
Because I'm kind of thinking, I lightly joked that I feel like I would have been good in the military if I, was a little bit stronger. I mean, I go to Orange Theory, and I'm ready to leave in
I remember
12
talking
minutes.
about that, yeah.
Yeah, I don't, I'm not a good, I'm not good.
Yeah.
I feel like I am very loyal and dedicated. So I have like those attributes.
Yeah.
The working out and it takes a lot of physical strength, which I just feel like I'm not the best at. But I would like to know, because that confidence, right? Like I'm thinking when I'm hiring someone, I just really want you to be able to come in and feel like I will, tell you the overall scope of this is what we do here. But I really want that person that just comes in and they feel like they know enough and are confident enough in themselves to do what you just said, to make a decision, make the best decision, because we all make bad decisions.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm not going to throw you out the window because you made a bad decision, when you were trying to do your best, and you have to be quick on your feet, because we move fast. We do move fast here. We're in marketing.
Yes.
It changes every day. Stuff pops up and we have to take care of it. How do you be that person, even if you don't have that military background?
Sure.
Like, how can you exude that confidence? Where does that come from, so that we can be that to, our employers, or just as a leader in our business? And I just...
I was in my cognitive working space. No, I was listening. I was like, how am I going to answer this? And I was getting pumped up, right? Because I think there's two parts of that. And one of them is the context, the environment in which the employee's like entering into to kind of be propped up for success, so they can make a decision confidently. And then it's the individual as well. And I think because we're on this military thing as well, and I was inspired by a lot of other recent posts. I'll give you a Ranger School story, right? Well, not a specific one, but kind of like what you learn there. First of all, you learn not to quit. How it's okay to want to quit, but not to do that. Like,
so
you can
the
get
fact
to the
that
point.
I want to quit every minute of Orange Theory, but I make it through the 60 minutes.
But I mean, there it is. Like, and there's that mental resiliency.
Okay.
And even when
That
you were
makes me feel
talking
better.
about, oh no, absolutely. And even when you were talking about the physicality, those physical stressors that are on there, it's still a psycho-emotional choice. So I think you always had that emotional resiliency in you, like the whole time. And you were using, I'm not going to say you're using like your lack of physical strength as an excuse, far from it, but at least you had like the mental fortitude. You know what I mean? To put yourself in these uncomfortable positions and see it all the way through to the end. And so in a way, that you have that skill set. Now there's certain extremes that you have to go to. And Ranger School is one of them. It's a leadership school because they put you in that position where you want to quit. So first of all, like just individually not quitting on yourself. Yeah. But another important lesson I think from there is the variables when you have a patrol, when you're responsible for that, when you're trying to get your go. And you can control so much, and then there's a whole lot that you can't.
Yeah.
And the only thing you can do is try to set yourself up for success as well as you can, and that's in the planning phase, the patrol phase, and then out there executing, but ensuring that if you are in charge, delegating that correctly.
Yeah.
Right? And I think but that's, now we're talking about a military Ranger School context, so let's put it out in the real world.
Okay.
Here's the problem I think that happens here is, and I'm not going to knock any individual, because like that can be a hard thing. There's imposter syndrome and a whole bunch of other like psychological things where I think people are a little intimidated by taking ownership. It could even be their first time, so that needs to be taught and trained into them. I think another problem, and this is where the employer comes in to set that up right, what is the job description of what they're doing?
Okay.
I think so many times this is not completely, completely is probably the wrong word, at least clearly communicated as to what you're doing. That's not a problem in the military. We got like an SOP for that, right? Like, and then if you don't, somebody's going to come, hey man, this is what you got to do. That fake it till you make it mentality is great to a certain extent. And then this is where like kind of goes off the wheels. Somebody propped up a very impressive job description that had a lot of word salad that said absolutely nothing about actually what they were supposed to do.
Yeah, that makes sense.
They get on the job, they get like maybe like a week of corporate training or maybe looking over somebody's shoulder, and it's a little thin. It's never followed up on. Some of these things might be used during a peer review, but then nobody knows what they're doing. So they're going to try to, and God bless them, they're going to try to find work or figure out what somebody else is doing. Well, guess what? That other person who's been there a while, they've been faking it till they make it too. So now they're like, whoa, don't look at my paper, man. Because like, I don't know if it's right either, but somehow whatever I'm doing is right. And this creates like a weird sycophantic atmosphere where it's like, can I work with this other person? Am I confident doing that? Do I have the confidence to show maybe a little vulnerability as far as that goes? So like compare work, and then it can get a little, where you're competing not against your competition, your real competition in the marketplace, but essentially each other. Now we have a term for that too. It's called a Spotlight Ranger. It could be called Blue Falcon, right? But another term for that could be having or talking ill about a coworker, not because you want to work harder to figure out what you need to do, but to make them look worse so that when it comes cutting time, it ain't you.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunate. And that's not, that kind of scenario isn't exclusive to the private sector. And there's been some bad experience that I've seen in the military as well, by all means. But it seems like one's, I'm not going to say tolerated, but it seems to happen. And I think that, I don't know if you're nodding because it's like, man, this guy keeps talking, or if you're kind of remembering, if you're remembering some points as well. So then it's on the management, the leadership, to go in there to try to give those parameters and enforce the good behavior and, detract from the bad behavior. And that's such a platitude too. Yeah. You almost have to get into the nuanced specification, but that's where that's so important, that you know what the job does, you know that you need it, and then you're hiring for it correctly, and then you're training, manifesting, and reinforcing that the whole time. Now, that's a lot to do.
Right.
But you also but it starts with a good strategy. Do I need this role? Why do I have this role? What do I really need the role doing?
Yeah.
And
that's good.
A lot of times, and I think this is the last thing before we can move on, people are so caught up on the pragmatic that it's hard to pull out, to take a larger purview of what's going on there too. And that's an important lesson, as when I was once upon a time a young lieutenant, doing that too. I could be there, like having a sector, and that's necessary to pull security. But if I'm just looking over here, what am I not looking at? Yeah. And is that my job, or can I put one of my guys there, ensure that that's all locked in, have a team leader then go over and supervise that? Have then the squad leader supervise them, so that then I, as the platoon leader, can be talking up to higher, letting them know what we're actually seeing.
Yeah.
What is my role versus what I could be doing? What's the pragmatic job that needs to be done, and it's absolutely critical and necessary, but then who has that either like larger vision or what they need to be doing strategically to get them to the next level?
Yeah. No, that's so good. I mean, when you were going through it, that's where my mind went, is that it's just as much on the leader to clarify what's needed.
It absolutely is.
Than it is on the employee or who, your team beneath you to come in and own whatever you're asking them to own. And I feel like that's the other part that amazes me is, if I came into the military, like say I'm a brand new recruit.
Okay.
And I don't know you, but you're my leader.
Welcome. Welcome with it. Yeah, look. But you made it.
But I'm trusting you with my life. Like, I don't know you. You don't know me. I don't know how long you've been in the military. I don't know how you got here, who you are. But the fact that we're going to go and do whatever, job, mission, put a label on it that we need to do, and I trust you blindly with my life. That is always very interesting to me from that aspect, because that does not translate the same, right? Like, well, necessarily, I do feel like, part of what I feel is on my shoulders as a partner and owner of the business, and someone that's saying, yes, I'm going to hire you, or no, I'm not going to hire you. In a sense, I actually do have a lot of their life in my hand. They're making a paycheck that, by the way, it's part of my responsibility to go out and make sure we're selling deals so that I can continue to keep them on my team. What they experience in home life can be impacted by what's happening here. If they're not happy here, that impacts home life, and they can bring their home life and it impacts their work here. So where it's not a literal, I'm going to save their life necessarily, but I feel like a lot of the same translations are reflective.
There are a ton of parallels, and I'm glad you're giving yourself the credit as well too, because I mean, don't get me wrong, it was an awesome responsibility to be in charge of American soldiers. It was a incredible thing, just not on the range of I'll say kinetic activities where that like livelihood is more directly in jeopardy, and yet and there are risks involved, and Lord knows I had like a much larger emotional spectrum to use as well. A little restricted here, right? Little bit.
Slightly.
And maybe and probably necessarily so, because I don't need to escalate to that level that I once was required to. Context notwithstanding.
Yes.
However, I think that's why veteran business owners are so critical. I think that's why veterans do well, not only to assume that risk, to take that ownership, but the unique thing is creating that value. And I can create value for my team, for whatever unit I was a part of, but like here you are creating jobs here in the economy, and that's such a necessary and beautiful thing. That is, I think, a critical part of the American experience, and it has become more complex, to say the least, and harder in recent years. And there's a lot more compliance, and probably administrative requirements, IRS, Department of Labor notwithstanding. And yet, American businesses, these small, scrappy organizations, especially small and medium sized, which I love, have that adaptability to react to it. And this is where real innovation happens. And it's a beautiful thing. And I'm glad you're showing yourself that too. It's like, okay, so hopefully nobody's going to die. You know what I mean? There's nothing wrong with that too. Just putting that out there. Look, we're going to be okay, but this is what we have to do. And then you're going to find a way to do it together with your team. And you know what? It's not going to be easy, but it never was.
Yeah. Is there a, thank you. Is there oh no, I had so many questions. Isaac would let me know we're coming up on the end of the show, and I'm like, but I had so many different, well, we may just have to have you back, part 2.
Part 2.
Okay, well then I'll go with what I feel is super relevant right now to kind of wrap up our conversation today, but I feel like COVID specifically has hurt smaller businesses. And within that sector are veteran-owned business.
Yeah.
So what are some ways you were seeing specifically that veteran-owned business community be impacted? And then is there something that we can do to help? And that may mean like, shopping small. That may mean searching for those and hiring them if they're looking. Like, how can we help each other in that way?
I think it's very hard for me to distinguish what affected uniquely a veteran-owned small business and any small business. I think we're here very much in the same boat. I think that the veteran-owned small is just coming with a little bit different experience and might have that veteran-owned small business association certification, call it 8A or whatnot, as far as that goes. Some of them that are working in the government contracting space did very well. Others didn't, and it was more industry dependent, I think, than ownership, notwithstanding. A very easy way to do that, and there's a myriad of different VSO sites. Some will have that down there. I always recommend shopping small or local in general. I don't think it exclusively has to be veteran-owned. But there's also, and this goes from anybody else who's not just in the greater Atlanta area, but checking out your local Bunker Labs chapter. We actually have a great one here in Atlanta, Georgia.
We do.
And this is actually one of the few that actually has not one but two veterans in residency cohorts. So these are some who are just starting off, some who are already trying to actually franchise their restaurants. You know, so shout out to Separify Bar and Grill, right? That's for free. That's on me, Carrie. Yeah, well, I'll see you later, right?
We'll send this clip.
But, yeah, well, wonderful. But point being is that there's a great energy right here, right? We were talking about Atlanta, we're talking about the veteran community. So it's almost goes without saying that there would be like a great chapter. The only one nationwide, COVID affecting New York, LA, Chicago. And yet we here in Atlanta are the only ones that have not one but two veteran in residency cohorts. I think that's a unique thing. I think the city of Atlanta should be proud of that. You know, there's the VetLanta organization too. So I think that, to your point, like there's a mindset of being like, where am I doing business, and should 100%. I be doing it more locally? There's a convenience factor. Is that going to be as important as we come out of COVID? And there's nothing wrong with doing that too. I think you had to. I think you were forced to do that once upon a time. But as you're making these choices, I would say keep that in mind. If it's veteran owned, great. If it's not, it's still a small business. Hey, figure it out.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. Okay, so Brett Stroney with Insperity, which we didn't even dive into, but if you're thinking like he's a cool guy, and I also need some HR and payroll.
Sure, absolutely,
assistance. How do people get in touch with you, Brett?
Probably the easiest way is by email, and it's just my first last name, so Brett, Brett, Stroney, Strony. I could use the phonetic spelling, but I think that's okay. At Insperity.com.
Awesome.
So yeah.
And you're also very active on LinkedIn.
I am. Find me on LinkedIn, my first and my last name. Yeah. Perfect. There's not too many of me.
Yes.
I'm the only one.
Well, thank you so much for coming in.
Well, thank you, Whitney. It was a pleasure as always.
Thank you.
Take care.
And we'll see you tomorrow for a new show, 8 a.m. See you then.